The current global political situation strongly suggests that we might be on the brink of another world war. If a global conflict begins, then things like food and clean drinking water are likely to become scarce, not to mention electricity and the internet as well. If such a situation arrives, one group might just outlast us all. The Amish. They live a very different life with no internet, electricity, or even cars. And this way of life could be the key for them in surviving the chaos and devastation that a world war brings in. How might a community that still lives without necessities like electricity be humanity's last survivors of World War III? And how can their way of living help them? Watch this video until the very end to find answers to all these questions and discover the fascinating details about the Amish world. For hundreds of years, the Amish have lived without relying on modern luxuries and conveniences the rest of us can't imagine living without. With no power grids and no dependency on the complicated yet delicate supply chains that bring food and other commodities to the rest of the world's doors. The lives of the Amish community are centered around the land they live on and their religion. That is exactly why they are not affected by the things that might bring our lives to a standstill. If a disaster strikes and the power is cut, people like us will be plunged into darkness, unable to go to work, or even do simple house chores like washing clothes or vacuuming our room. As for the Amish, they will just light a lantern and carry on with their routine as usual. Their simple choices have created a society that's more prepared for a global conflict and a world where every modern invention is destroyed. The Amish learn every skill as if their life depended on it, such as farming without tractors or other machines, building homes without construction machinery, and preserving food without refrigeration. While these might be hobbies for some of us, they are everyday life for the Amish people. And if World War III begins and the current system of living collapses, it's these skills that will mean the difference between life and death. Let's talk about the one thing that is bound to go scarce as soon as the global conflict occurs: food. While we may or may not need other necessities, none of us can live without food. The rising population means the current world is already short on food and depends on fragile supply chains to meet the increasing food demands. World War III might disrupt these supply chains for years. In such a situation, preserving the already available food might be our best shot. But the majority of the world might be without electricity, which means the refrigerators will be of no use to us to preserve our food. This is where the Amish community will do better. For centuries, they have developed and refined different food preservation methods that can help them keep certain foods in edible condition for as long as 20 years. Let's talk about how the Amish preserve their meat. The main ingredient in their meat preservation technique is good quality salt. The Amish have learned the importance of salt in meat preservation from ancient civilizations like the Romans and the Egyptians, who figured out that salt was nature's pause button for food spoilage. But what makes salt good quality? For starters, you should know that the table salt in your homes that sprinkle over your French fries might not meet the quality the Amish rely on. This is because modern salts have iodine, anti-caking agents, and other additives that weren't present in the ancient Roman and Egyptian civilizations. The Himalayan salt and the salt extracted from the seabeds make the perfect option to preserve food. The reason is simple: pure salt creates the perfect environment for meat preservation. If the power goes out during World War III, it wouldn't affect the Amish community much because their preserved meat will be perfectly fine whether the electricity is out for days, weeks, or even months. When salt is applied to meat, it slowly absorbs all the moisture from it, but that's just the start. By removing the moisture from the meat, salt also protects it from the bad bacteria that thrive in the presence of moisture. After applying salt, the Amish cut the meat into small slices and place it on a cooling rack inside the container to avoid it from becoming extremely salty and losing its taste. The container is then placed on something that is level and stable, and it's made sure that there's enough room around the container for air circulation. The Amish have their traditional ice houses, which act as a storage location while the meat is in salt coating. Once the salt has absorbed all the moisture, it is then hung using S-shaped metal hooks and can stay there for years. Now, let's talk about energy. In a world engulfed in a deadly war where oil supplies are cut off and power grids fail, what happens? For the Amish, the answer is simple: Nothing changes. The Amish people have no dependence on electricity or fossil fuels. You might be wondering, if they don't use electricity or gas, then how do they keep their homes warm, especially during chilly winters? Woods. They use the tried and true methods for heating their homes, which their ancestors used and perfected over time. Every Amish home has a wood-burning stove, which is quite large in size due to the fact that wooden logs are burned in them. The Amish collect firewood throughout the year to make sure they have enough wood to heat their homes during the winter season. One heating method used by the Amish for centuries is the rocket mass heater. What's interesting about these heaters is that they extract maximum heat from a small amount of wood and are capable of keeping large spaces warm for hours just using a few branches. But wood isn't the only natural source of heating for them. For centuries, the Amish have used other natural sources of heat as well. For example, when the Amish build their homes, they make sure the house and bar are oriented in such a way that ensures maximum sunlight exposure. Another technique that this community has been using for centuries is the use of materials with high thermal mass. Materials such as bricks and stones are used while building the houses. The benefit of using these materials is that they absorb heat from the sun during the daytime and slowly release that heat during the night. This helps keep the homes warm and cozy at night by consistently releasing the heat and reducing the need for conventional heating systems. Apart from these materials, the Amish also use a system called heat hierarchy. This system allows them to keep the bedrooms and living areas warm while the storage spaces stay cooler. Electricity is not just used to keep modern houses warm, but it runs all the major home appliances as well, including washing machines and dryers. In case of another world war, the power grids are likely to be destroyed first, which means none of the usual appliances will work. The Amish community uses classic Maytag brand wringer washers, which are powered by a pneumatic motor, eliminating the dependence on electricity for washing clothes. As for drying clothes, most of us don't have the luxury of extra space to hang our clothes to dry, like the Amish people do. Every Amish home has a clothesline with a spool that helps in stringing a long line of laundry from one point to another point high up on the side of a barn or in a tree. This allows them to dry clothes without taking up any space on the lawn. So, think about a world without electricity to wash clothes in washing machines. While the rest of us might have to wear the same clothes for months, the Amish would be able to wash and dry their clothes without disturbing their usual routine. Most of the food we consume is heavily processed, and before it reaches the factory to be packed, it's soaked in several liters of pesticides. This is because food doesn't grow normally these days without the use of pesticides. But that's not true for the Amish communities. While most of the world is busy spraying harmful pesticides on their crops, the Amish have successfully developed some of the most effective pest-resistant techniques around the world. For the Amish, the use of pesticides on their fruits, vegetables, and grains has never been an option. So they've come up with unique ways of fighting pest attacks on their food. Neither do they use any machinery to plow their fields or harvest their crops. Now, imagine if World War III suddenly started today. The majority of farmers in our modern world will be left clueless without the availability of fuel to run their machines or pesticides to protect their crops from diseases. The Amish? They wouldn't be worried at all because their crops don't need pesticides to grow. The Amish believe that using chemicals is equivalent to fighting nature. They take their gardens as mini communities where even the bugs have a specific purpose to serve. They take their soil very seriously and make sure anything they grow on is healthy soil full of nutrients. To prepare nutrient-rich soil, they don't use artificial fertilizers or other additives, but rather use the tried and tested natural fertilizer, compost animal manure. To fight the attacks by beetles, ants, and other such insects, the Amish use natural ingredients. For example, garlic is a great way of making the pests steer clear of the garden. And if that doesn't work, then a spicy spray of chili pepper is definitely going to do the job. So, in the case of World War III, the Amish will not only be able to preserve the already available food, but will also be able to grow new crops without the need for artificial fertilizer or pesticides. War brings new diseases with it, and in case of another global conflict, the healthcare system is likely to collapse. This means people with critical illnesses who regularly need medicines will be in trouble. Thanks to their close-to-life nature, the Amish have a strong immune system, and even if they get sick, they use natural remedies to treat their diseases, a skill that is going to come in handy in case of another world war. Their strong immune system comes from their highly active and healthy routine, which involves doing everything manually, from lifting to carrying water, chopping wood, and feeding the cattle. As for the food they consume, it's all fresh, always. Their independence of highly processed food and intake of fresh, whole foods means they usually have a lower chance of getting chronic diseases like diabetes or heart problems. When it comes to treating different illnesses, the Amish have two powerful natural allies: garlic and elderberry syrup. Both these foods are packed with health benefits. For example, garlic is a natural fighter for colds, keeps blood pressure in check, and boosts the immune system. These natural remedies are another reason why the Amish would survive World War III, even without accessibility to modern healthcare. So, what can we learn from the Amish and their lifestyle? In a world that has become all about convenience, the Amish community reminds us of the power of simplicity and self-reliance. Their way of life might seem old-fashioned to most of us, but that's exactly what will make them the ultimate survivors of World War III. Thanks for watching. Do let us know in the comments section how you liked today's video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. See you soon in another video.